chatty group. This is my husband, TJ. Would you please make him feel welcome?
Nisha, am I sitting the right side, Nisha?
Oh my gosh.
Nisha, am I sitting on the right
TJ,
side?
you have to hold it up to your mouth.
Okay, I'm loud. She knows exactly what I'm talking. I won't tell the story, Nisha.
TJ, this is what I mean. We can't get off track.
Okay.
We're gonna start a little early because I'm really worried about time. Because we both are a little long-winded. So, okay. And Sarah, the video's good. Okay. So this is my husband, TJ, and a few months, back earlier, I think when Moms of Faith started this year, I had said, hey, marriage is always one of our most requested topics. We'll be married 24 years in June. We've learned a lot along the way. Would you want to come in? And he was like, oh yeah, I'll come in. And so a couple weeks ago, we got our heads together and...
Whoa. You missed a big step of that. 2 weeks ago, I have us on my calendar.
Right.
And I go up to her and I go, hey, in the middle of her Facebook typing, and I said, hey, do you want me to still come in on the 14th? And there was a long pause. And so I think with Kelly, the longer you're out, the farther out, the better the idea gets. And the closer to the date, the more nervous she gets. And she's very worried about me having one of these in front of you all in a church. It took a little, I'm not going to, I cuss, but I love Jesus, but I won't cuss today. Anyways, I'll be good. She gave me a script. Don't you love this? It's color-coded and everything.
I said in the outline, we talked about our points. I typed it up, sent it to him, and I said, did you get my outline? And he goes, I have a few edits. So TJ and I met in 1994 doing a high school musical at Perry Meridian High School. I was a sophomore. He was a senior. TJ's not the most musically inclined. However, it was a big cast, and they needed a bunch of guys, and a bunch of his buddies were doing it, so...
Worked out for me.
Yeah, so we met doing a musical, and every day, I didn't know him very well, but every day, for 2 months, he would go to Hardee's there at Stop 11 and 135 and get me a cheeseburger and fries for rehearsal. And, we barely knew each other. And so I thought, well, he's a sweet guy, but,
I was Carlton Banks of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I was a nerd, okay?
He was.
Sweaters,
he wore,
everything.
Sweater vests, and his hair was, kind of bushy, and he just looked like an attorney, but he was only 17, But he was super sweet, but I thought, he's a sweet guy. And so, anyway, he asked me out. It was a hard no. And we didn't see each other for...
About a year and a half.
A little while, yeah. And then, I won't tell that story. But anyway, we really didn't see each other or spend any time together for a while. And so fast forward to 1997.
97.
I had just been dumped by my boyfriend at the time. Who,
she had an opportunity to upgrade.
Side note, that boyfriend was in our wedding and is the godfather of our daughter. That's a story for another time. I had just been dumped, and I went country line dancing at the Junction in Mooresville. Most of you are way too young to even know. Yes. Does anybody know what the Junction is? Okay, good.
Oh, of course,
Most
Carrie.
of these girls were born in the 2000s, so they don't know. And his sister was there, his sister Natalie. And so she said, hey, Kelly Freeman just got dumped by her boyfriend. You should call her and ask her out. So a few days later, I'm at home. My parents are out of town. Home phone rings. It's TJ. A few minutes later, my mom beeps in on voicemail, and I'm like, Mom, TJ, do you remember TJ Sponsel? Of course, she loved, because who doesn't love a little Carlton Banks, right? She was like, oh, yes, he is. I said, Mom, he's going to ask me out, and I do not want to go. She said, Kelly, just go. He's such a sweet kid. He'll show you a great time, whatever. He asked me out. I was like, sure. He shows up at my front door, and I was like, hello. Wow. So we started dating. We got married in
2000.
June 10th, 2000. And that's our story. We've been married for 24 years. Do you want to add anything?
There's a lot I could add, but for brevity purposes, I'll say it was a fun journey from the time that date to getting married. So we both ran each other through the mill a little bit. So, and we won't go those details, but
story
it was
for another time.
And then she kept wanting me to put a ring on her finger, and I wasn't ready. I just wasn't ready. And so the best story, the only thing I'll add to that, she knows me. I'm wired. I'm an accountant. I have to put things in order. So she knew that at the time I lived with my mom and dad because I was only a year out of college, and she knew that if I got a house, that I would then think about the future and planning and things like that. So she took it on she took the initiative to go find me a house. And she even talked to the realtor about the house. So she calls me at work one day and she goes, I found the most perfect house for you. And I'm like, okay, this is great. Where's it at? Oh, okay. And so long story short, we go look at the house, and to come to find out at the realtor, I asked him, okay, well, hey, this house has been on the market for 9 days. He goes, well, I think you probably need to come in at list price. And this is $19.99. Nobody paid list price on a house, $99. And so we ended up making an offer for full list, and we go to Grindstone Charlie's right there on 135 afterwards, my mom and dad and Kelly, and I'm like, man, that realtor was pretty locked in on me going list. And Kelly goes, well, I may have something to do with that. I'm like, oh, God. And I said, well, what did you do? And she goes, well, all the houses you were looking at in Homecroft were it was $95,000 we paid for our first house, is that all the houses were $125,000. And so when I told this guy named Sig Sigler was the guy's name, is that she goes, so when I was talking to Mr. Sigler and he said the price was $95,900, she says, that's perfect. That's cheaper than anything else he's looked at. And so it ruined my negotiating. So she no longer buys anything big in our house.
Okay. TJ found this video.
It's a test.
Okay, go ahead.
It's a test. So I'm going to test to see just how truthful you all are.
All right, let's watch.
Why'd you park there? I don't know why you parked there. Why?
Can we start it again?
Why would you park there? I don't know why. Why'd you park there? I don't know why you parked there. Why? Why would you park there? I don't know why. Oh, I can't take it, man. I lose it. Fine! Tell me where to park, boss. Tell me where you're gonna park this car, please. Oh my God, you're mad. You have anger problem. No, I have wife problem. Because I park this car all the time by myself. I never get mad. I'm pretty sure it's you. I've never once parked my car and said, why did I park here? Why would I park here?
Go ahead.
There's other section. Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, you got the whole, there was another part of it. Anyways, who describes that? Who does that? Come on. So there's a lot of liars right now in this room. There's a lot of liars. Okay, so hilarious thing, I get this video one day in the office, and I send it to some of my colleagues in the office, and they're all like, oh my gosh, that's me, because the second part of it talks about how his wife can never find her phone, and it's always the bottom of her purse on silent. And so, anyways, we got a good laugh at it. I sent it to my mother-in-law, Donna Freeman, who you all know, and she nags my father-in-law incessantly. And she's like, what are you trying to say? And I'm like, you know exactly what I'm trying to say. So, anyways, I just thought that was funny, and a funny clip about marriage, because it is so true. So you even did that pulling into Center Grove Central.
Just last night.
Just last night.
I was like, really? This is where you chose?
It's full. The parking lot's full. I had to park in the back. So unless she wanted to walk with a limp and park in a handicap. So.
Okay, so we're going to start with your marriage versus your kids. And we've talked about this before, but, God has an order that by design, and it's God, and then your spouse, and then your kids. And your kids, by design, are in third place, biblically. Luke 14:26-27 in the Message version says, anyone who comes to me but refuses to let go of father, mother, spouse, children, brothers, sisters can't be my disciple. So God has to be at the center, and that has to do with your personal relationship with Christ and the time that you spend with him. But most of us, especially when our children are very young, we get those places 2 and 3 backwards. We get them flipped. And we put our children in second place many, many times. Genesis 2:24 says, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. It does not say this about your kids. You're one flesh with your spouse. And we would all lay down our lives for our children, and that is a natural God-given love, but our spouse is supposed to take priority above our kids.
You know, this is not, when we're talking about planning for this, we felt like they were putting our marriage under a microscope. Our marriage is far from perfect. And I know a lot of what we want to share with you today is based on a lot of arguments that we've had and a lot of challenges we've had in our marriage. And we've been blessed she's my best friend. I love her. She's my fairy tale, but man, she can be frustrating. And so I wanted to throw that out there. So I wanted to tell you all that this is not us like feeling like, hey, we got it nailed down, because we don't.
have knockdown dragouts.
At all. We were just arguing on Saturday about organizing a storage closet. It was a blast. And so not throwing away anything where the stuff was put on the shelves. So we're far from perfect. But regarding the kids, you know, it's hard on us. We see our friends. I mean, we have a couple that were in our wedding, and they live 2 hours away, and we never see them because they have a 22-year-old daughter, a 19-year-old son, and a 13-year-old son, and they can't leave their kids. Their kids all live at home. They can't leave their kids to go on a date or try to go away for a weekend. And it's just there's no priority on just them, and it shows. And it shows. They don't invest anything in their marriage. And I was on a golf trip a couple years ago with this individual, and we were down in Evansville playing at this golf resort, and literally he gets in the car, we go to leave, and we give the bro hugs and good to be with you, man, love you, man, and he goes like, well, I don't have anything to look forward to now. Got to go back home. That's his mentality, because there's him and his wife. It's not this, and we know it is. And we have some other friends that we were at dinner with. This is years ago, and literally we were talking about how our date nights, and they're like, yeah, we don't go on dates. We'll go on dates when our kids are out of the house. You know, and it's just, and Kelly and I are just, that makes us sad, because for me, our lives are so hectic. Your all's lives are so hectic. The time we have just going to a restaurant at 7:45 at night because Paige is fed or she's got friends over, and just that hour is a reset for both of us. And I think that's how you need to look at it, is the time with your spouse is, yeah, you got maybe some issues you got to talk about or decisions you got to make, but at the end of the day, it's an opportunity to reset with the individual you've chosen to spend your life with. And it's intrinsically valuable to me to have that one-on-one time. And I'm kind of the woman in the relationship. She's the guy.
Totally is.
And so I'm really kind of helping you all a lot today, because I am the one that's the crier. I'm the one that can't go to bed mad. She snores just fine when we're arguing. And it's all good, so.
So it's just making that time, whether it's a date night, even if you can just do it once a month, to make that a priority. A getaway once a year, even if it's like down to Brown County overnight. Just making sure that you have that time together. The second part, not allowing your children to pit you against each other. Our girls still try that. You know, they go to one and the other, and they want a different answer from dad, and they try to get us against each other so that they can get your way. Teach your children from very young that you and your spouse are one unit. If dad says no, the answer is no. Let them know that they're not going to get a different answer from you. And as parents, be mindful of your spouse's position on certain matters when your children ask for something.
Yeah, my rule with the girls, Kelly is at home, with the girls every day, and I work and I travel, and sometimes Maddie or Paige will call me or text me or, hey, Dad, can I get this? It's very obscure that they ask me, so the first response I have is, let me talk to your mom. Because I know if they're asking...
They're like, dang it.
And because I need to see what her answer was. Because I know that if they're coming, they know how to play both. I have my weaknesses, she has her weaknesses in terms of what they need. But it's one of those good practices that we've had, is that I don't give the girls an answer until I talk to Kelly about things of any type of relevance or significance. So.
And then not belittling your spouse or complaining about your spouse in front of your kids. I try really hard. When I get frustrated with him, I might talk to my mom. I might talk to a friend, maybe. I'm really, really careful about who I will divulge that to. Usually I just tell him. But I don't tell my girls. My girls adore him, and I want it to stay that way. And I want to do for my girls what my mom did for me, which was put my dad up here. I adore my dad. He's literally like the greatest human on the planet. And it's because...
We know, Kelly. We know.
It's because my mom never talked bad about my dad in front of me and my brother. Never.
We actually created a song that we sing for David. It's called, his mother's name's Wanda. It's Wanda, Did You Know? I mean, it is bad. It is bad. Anyway,
you love my dad.
I love him. He's a good man. So
Okay.
I have two rules for our girls. The top two rules in our house for our girls: love Jesus, love your mother. Love Jesus, respect your mother. Because the way they talk, they're teenagers, they're 14, 18, but they come from us, so they're going to have attitude. But I always tell them, love Jesus, respect your mother. Because it doesn't matter. Everything else will fall in line if you do those first two things. And so I'm proud of them. Paige and Maddie are very different, just like your children are. But I'm trying to instill in them, love Jesus, respect your mother in that order. The next thing is, it's funny in one of my many edits of this document of our script, I use the term your marriage verses in these subjects, your marriage verses, because it's you taking on all these challenges together. Okay, so the next one is your marriage versus finances, and before I say, I want to let everybody know that Kelly and I are very blessed, and we went through a really, really hard season in our life. I made a decision in business that I left what was a very promising career in public accounting to go by a client. I failed miserably. 2005, I literally had to go to her in tears. She was pregnant, 7 months pregnant with Maddie. She wanted a pizza from Vito's because that's what she was craving. And I said, honey, I'm not digging coins out of the ashtray. We had no money, we had no credit, we were broke. I was broken. And so what I'm getting ready to share with you is not anything other than just the medication that we took as we dug ourselves out of that massive hole from 2005 till, it took us about 7 or 8 years to dig out of it. So we got there. But basically what I want to share with you is that the reason I said marriage versus whatever the subject is because our marriages are going to face pressures internally and externally. They're going to be, some of them are self-inflicted wounds, and some of them are beyond our control. Our marriages are always battling something. And I know for many of us, it's money. It comes back down to finance. The stress caused by I kind of attribute it down to the stress and arguing over the I want versus we need. And I think that's the perpetual problem. My company, I have about 100 employees. I started the company around the kitchen table. It has about 100 employees. Many of them I hired out of college or in their early 20s. And now they have families and they have obviously spouses, and maybe some of their spouses want to stay home or they want to pivot their careers. And so I've gotten close to some of them. They're like my kids, because some of them are old enough to be young enough to be my kids. And so they come to me and they talk about challenges, and a lot of it's related to money. And, of course, they come to me because they want more money. And I explained to them, and I said, well, you don't have a revenue problem, you have a spending problem. You're 28 years old and your wife has 2 Louis Vuitton purses. You may have a spending problem. But I found that my counsel is pretty straightforward and simple because we make finances hard. Now, I say that, but there's extraordinary situations in life. There's job loss, there's illness, there's something that happens that puts that external pressure on the finances. But for us, and for some people that I've helped counsel over the years, it is really a lack of defining a want versus a need, and having that definition clearly defined within your marriage. When your marriage can properly define that distinction, everything else, the math is pretty simple. And if you have a spouse that struggles with math, okay, is that you sometimes have to write down and say, this is how much we make. This is our mortgage or our rent. This is our utilities. This is daycare. This is the stuff that is where the I want comes from. The I want doesn't come from the top. And I think it only works if you have those conversations. And I said conversations plural. We have them still to this day. This woman loves Amazon. She loves Amazon. She loves what it stands for. It's awesome. Her ultimate day was we hit the Trinity, not in a spiritual sense. UPS, FedEx, and Amazon were in our driveway at one time. It was a beautiful moment. We have a picture of it. Maybe we should throw it up. We have a picture of it. So my point is, you will always have this. This conversation's always evolving. And so for those of you who maybe have some challenges with this, I would say sit down with your spouse and have this conversation of defining your wants versus your needs. Youth sports are very expensive right now. I know some of you here have very active children. I have some employees that have very active children. That is a struggle because there's a lot of pressure. Those are expensive. But helping define those is something that really helped our marriage a great deal when we didn't have what we have now, and we were really in a time of it was never desperate, but it was lean. And so I would just tell you, if you can do that, that would be helpful. But here's one important thing I want to point out. One spouse can't get all of their I wants, and the other spouse focusing on the we needs. Because that's a recipe for disaster. Because at some point, the one that's focusing on the I needs is going to say, the heck with it, and I'm going to start getting my I wants also. And then the whole thing implodes. And so what I would tell you is life's hard. Finances can be very challenging, but sitting down and having open conversations, defining which bucket where your lifestyle and where those two fall within the I want and I need can be extremely helpful.
Okay, extended family.
Oh boy.
I know. We're going to refer back to that verse in Genesis, which coincidentally, I had this in our wedding ceremony 2 times in the hopes that if my mother-in-law didn't hear it the first time, she might pick up on it the second time. And that is, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Now I want to say one thing. I love my mother-in-law. I really do. And I love my father-in-law. They're good people. And I don't want to put them in a disparaging light. But we have had some stuff through the years with extended family, specifically his extended family, specifically his parents. But I will give TJ a lot of credit. From day one, he drew a line in the sand that needed to be drawn. Not that he doesn't love his parents, not that he doesn't respect his parents, he does. But when we were newlyweds, his mom specifically wanted him to come by her house on his way home from work without me to have a glass of wine. And the request was very specifically without Kelly. And he said, no. If you want to have a glass of wine, we will come. But I'm not coming by myself. I'm going to go home and see my wife. And there were many, 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 many examples of that. And after 24 years, I think they've got it. I feel like they've backed off a little bit. It took nearly all of those 24 years. Now
there's been some good moments.
There have been some good moments. They're not bad people. They are not bad people. But we've had struggles. But TJ has always, by God's grace, he has always put me in my wishes and desires above that of his parents. And that's biblical. That's how it's supposed to be. And so, by God's grace, your parents have not ever come between us, I don't think.
I knew her parents are great people and they're friends, our friends, but there's a burden there that I couldn't attack, and because that would not be anything good for our marriage either.
So there's a way to honor your parents and still make sure that your spouse takes priority, the priority that they should. And one just quick example that we had in this upset, both of our parents, and I'm sure so many of you can relate to this, but our Christmases before we had kids were not enjoyable. I mean, it was run here, run there, go see this side, go see that side, and it was madness. It was awful. It really was. We dreaded Christmas Day. And so when Maddie was born, we just said to both parents, we're not doing this. We're going to be at home, and we'd love it if you would come see us. But, we're done. We're not running all over. We just stopped. And they were not happy. Neither one of them were happy.
But our holidays were a lot better.
Christmas has been fabulous ever since, I have to tell you. Okay, This is you. Household responsibilities.
One of the things I think Kelly and I do well, and because we've obviously made a lot of mistakes, is that we have a pretty even division of responsibilities within our home. And I think that's something as I look at our friends and I look at some of my younger colleagues at the office, and I think it's something that I take a lot of pride in, is the way her and I balance each other out.
Yeah, so I was an elementary school teacher, had Maddie, stayed home for 1 school year, went back to work, worked 3 more years teaching while Maddie was a toddler in preschool, and then I had Paigey, and then teachers don't make a lot of money, so by the time I would pay for childcare, it made more sense just to stay home. So I've been home since Paige was born in 2009, and so because I don't work outside of the home, my responsibilities have fallen pretty much in that traditional wife, stay-at-home wife, mom area, because I don't work outside the home. I know some of you do work outside the home, and I know that most all of our evening group works outside the home, and so that's a totally different thing. If you're both working full-time, or even if you're working part-time, you and your spouse have to have those discussions and work that out to make sure that you have an equitable division of your responsibilities at home. And so our roles are pretty traditional in terms of he doesn't cook, I cook, he does the yard work.
I love to do dishes, clean.
He does, yeah, he does dishes. It's wonderful. So the first summer we were married, actually, I think it was like the first month we were married.
Sarah can relate. She lives by us. She knows how I feel about yards. So
Yes,
this is
Sarah.
really not fair.
Thank you. I said thank
There's
you.
a story here. There's a story here, Sarah, coming.
So the first summer we were married, I wanted to surprise him. And we had a little teeny tiny house, but we had a big yard and a push mower. And it was July. It was hot, and I wanted to surprise him. And so I push mowed the yard. And you guys, I had never done that before. My dad didn't.
Sarah is smiling because she knows.
I didn't. And so I was he's going to pull in the driveway and the yard's going to be mowed. He's going to be so excited. And so he got out of his truck and he was like, "You mow the grass?" And I was like, "Yes." And his face, I think he was trying to be appreciative, but his face, I was like, "What?"
It was a traumatic experience.
"What?" And he was like, "Do you see, the lines, and do you see, still the strips of long grass that you missed?"
You ever heard the term horseshoes and hand grenades? That's how she applied grass. So she would mow this section and miss this section, and then mow this section, and there was not one straight line. So that's the last time she mowed.
I haven't done it since. That was in the summer of 2000. I've not touched a lawnmower since. I do other things. But ours falls along pretty traditional lines. Yours may not. Maybe you're awesome at mowing the grass, and maybe your husband's an amazing cook. You do you. You do what works for you. My point is that we have to make sure that it's equitable.
Well, I think one of the things that we see in some of our friend group, and we're blessed with great friends, but they are, it's a very noticeable situation where one spouse does a lot of the work, and the other spouse doesn't do much work. And couple that, going back to another story, we have some friends that, he literally does everything. I think she works maybe 1 day a week, but he does everything. He fixes the kids' meals, laundry, everything. And it's just, and he's on burnout mode. He's 50 years old, and there's a lot of frustration there. Now, he loves his wife, and he's proud of how he provides for his wife, but it's exhausting to the point, he'll call me and say, "Hey, we have a place in Florida." He's from the South. He's like, "Hey, man, can we go down to the condo, just you and me for a couple of days? I need some rest, And I'm like, "Hey, Kel, so-and-so wants to go." She goes, "Well, as couples?" I'm like, "No, he doesn't want his wife to go." And so, but he wants Kelly to go. Kelly can go, because. So my point is because, but that started, you saw that coming 20 years ago. It's like, buddy, you've been doing this for 20 years. At some point, you got to change the story.
Yeah. So what I'm about to say, this could be really controversial. Please do not give me mean looks and stare at me. I'm telling you what worked for us. This is directed to moms who stay at home and who do not work outside of the home. And notice I didn't say that you don't work, because you definitely do. if you don't work outside of the home, okay? But if you are not employed outside of the home, just like I am not employed outside of the home, my responsibilities will and should be at home more than his. My husband works 70, 80 hours a week. Now, most people probably don't do that. But even if your husband works 40 or 50, he's working. And you're working at home. So it's not fair for him to come home and you to be off. And we have friends, they're acquaintances, very, very young in their early marriage. They've got 3 little bitty kids. He works full time. She's a stay-at-home mom. But first of all, he comes home on his lunch break to give her a break. And then when he comes home in the evening, he's on and she's off. He's cooking, he's doing dishes, he's giving baths, he's putting the kids to bed, and she is in the bubble bath watching Netflix or out with girlfriends. That's not okay. I know that she's had a long day with the kids. You guys have long days with the kids. I remember those days very well because he was traveling a lot during those days, and it was hard, and I was tired. But you know what? My job was to stay home and take care of our home and our kids, and so I did that. And I always, I think, by God's grace, tried to make sure that when he came home, he got to have some downtime, and he got to have a respite from his day. And I see a lot of imbalance in friendships that we have with other families where it's like, okay, I see what he's doing. What do you do? And it's all I can do to not say that sometimes. And I know raising kids is hard and stressful. And I know getting up with that baby in the middle of the night is hard and stressful. I remember those days. And I love sleep. Nobody loves sleep more than I do.
No one does.
But I will tell you, he went back to work right after our girls were born. That was before paternity stuff. We didn't do that. The baby was born, and the next day he was at the office. And I got up with the babies because he had to get up and go to work. Would I have loved to sleep through the night? Well, sure I would have. But I could sleep the next day when the baby slept, and he couldn't. So I got up with the babies every night. Sometimes he did you did the weekends for me so I could sleep. But you've got to make sure that it's equitable, and you've got to make sure that one spouse is not doing 80% of the stuff, or there's going to be resentment that's going to start to creep in. It will start to creep into the marriage. Is it me or you?
My script says K.
Touched on
I'm
that.
I've been told to stick to
So,
the script.
and if you both work outside of the home, have a discussion with your spouse and make sure that you both feel comfortable with the division of the household responsibilities. I would encourage you over the next few days, just talk to your husband and just ask.
Well, it's also about having awareness. That's something. We're pretty simple creatures. Okay, we're not. Sometimes the most obvious things don't stick out to us, and so I would tell you. The conversations, and we're very similar people, and so some of the things that drive us nuts, we share those. Well, let's go all OCD.
They know that I'm OCD.
Yeah, but,
So is he.
My point is that so it's come sometimes, but we do things together sometimes, and it's just and that's I just would explain to your spouse the importance of awareness, and hey, if you see it. Take care of it, or teach your kids to help out.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's unbelievable. I've often said I started mowing yards at 10 years old, and I haven't stopped, and it's working, and it's amazing. I had a colleague come in yesterday. He travels a lot, and his kids are in sports. He's got a 13-year-old son, and he came in the day. He was like, "Man, my lawn care company really is raising their fees for 2024." And I was like, "Man, this is going to be expensive." And I'm like, "You know what a mower is?" I go, "Let's go." And so literally, I'm taking him on Friday afternoon and getting him a mower, and I'm going to teach his son how to mow because this guy's never mowed a yard. And I said, this is pretty easy. We're going to have your son do the yard. And then it'll teach him work and teach him how to do things improper and teach him quality and taking ownership of something. And I'm like changing his life. He looks at me, he's like, wow. I have a lot of 20-year-olds in my office. No offense, 20-year-olds, but you're very difficult to manage. Whew.
Okay. Sex.
Oh,
Here we
boy.
go. All right. So, we've been married 24 years, and we've had times in our marriage, this is going to be we're just going to lay it all out there, okay, girls? There have been times in our marriage where we had a lot of sex, newlyweds. We were married for 5 years before we had Maddie. We had sex all the time. It was fantastic. And then times, not as much, right? When the babies are born.
Kelly created 87 excuses not to have sex.
Shut
87. True. True story.
If you need ideas. I'm totally kidding. So when they're babies, right? Not as much. When they get old enough to walk in your room unannounced, probably not as much. Then again, when they get old enough to figure out what's happening when the door is closed and locked. And now, so we've been through all those phases, and now we're like in this phase where the door's closed and they know, and we don't care. Okay? We don't. Now, we try to,
Be discreet.
but we don't care. Yeah, we're having sex. The reality is, whatever phase you're in right now, and if you've got little ones, it's a different phase. We've been in that phase. But it's important. It's an important part of marriage. Generally, men want it more often than women do. And this can be difficult at the end of a long day. And I'm gonna, because a lot of times we find ourselves saying no more often than yes. We've been through those phases. We've been there. And that's okay. I'm not saying that you can't say no, but if you say no a lot more than you say yes, it can start to create problems in your marriage. I'm going to borrow a suggestion that Katie Brown offered when she and her fabulous husband Todd were here a couple years ago, and I was like, that's fabulous, and I'm just going to say it. Splash some water on your face, go look at yourself in the mirror and say, you can do this. It only takes a few minutes. Sometimes. And just do it. Because men need sex. They do. Hopefully this isn't going to be how it always is, but sometimes you just gotta, you can do it, girls, and just do it.
Here's
okay?
a great story about two of us, is that during this season of our marriage, one time we have sex and get done, and she slaps me on the back, and then she goes, there you go. I'm like, wow.
Okay. Wow, this is getting awkward. Okay, it's your turn.
Well, it's funny. First of all, station break. This ministry is an inspiration to my wife. And this group of ladies, this is something my wife truly gives her energy. It gives her a lot of, she's better when she's better when she's doing this. And sometimes the summers creep up, and I'm like, man, you got to start that Moms of Faith. Call Christy Brink, spin that thing up early, summer school. But I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity that you give her to come and give your time, and I hope that it's a mutual relationship. But she's this group is something that she really, really, really enjoys. And so when I was telling some colleagues recently that Kelly and I were doing this, and the person I work next to, her name's Cindy, and she's mid-50s, and she's great, and she's been with me for 10 years, and I said, I'm going to speak on the 14th, I'll be in about noon, I'm speaking to Kelly's Moms of Faith group. She's like, oh, okay, and how many is there? I think there's like 70. What are you talking about? I said, sex, and Cindy goes, has she lost her mind? And so I said, no, so she's sane, and she's sane, and she's very smart. So, but here's the deal, I'm gonna give you from the guy's version. We are simple creatures. I'm gonna remind you of that, okay? We are not complicated, even though you think we're complicated. We are not, okay? We hate to be nagged. We do not want to go to dinner with your relative that's in town for the week, okay? We don't want to watch Real Housewives of whatever city, okay? We don't want to do those things. And we especially hate constantly asking for sex, okay? It's a joke. It's the only thing that links a lot of guys together. Like we sit there and, you might have different backgrounds or different preferences, but guess what? In the golf course or wherever you're at, the commonality is, hey, my wife gave me this excuse last night, okay? For example, last Saturday night, a lot of guys didn't have sex with their wives because daylight savings time, okay? It's like, honey, I can't. We got 1 hour less of sleep. And I think that it's It's just something that you can see a lot of guys, and we talk about it and then we joke about it. It is one of the most frustrating things. And honestly, you're laying in bed and you haven't, for Kelly and I, we haven't this is not this season of our life, but previous season, is that, we don't fool around and, it's her SI joint. It's a book. It's, I got to wake up early for Moms of Faith tomorrow.
Headache.
It's the excuses. Well, it gets frustrating because at the end of the day, we want to be wanted. We want to be wanted. We want to, and that's my love. Like I said earlier, I'm kind of the woman in the deal. I want to be wanted, and I think that's something that that rejection constantly, we just stop asking. We just stop asking, and then a lot of dangerous things come into play.
That's when you run into trouble.
And
when they
so-
stop asking.
And because it's like this.
You've never stopped asking, by the way.
Oh no. Well, I played.
To clarify.
Actually, I played possum in the night because she thought I was asleep, so she snuck into bed, and I thought you were asleep. But I said, no, I'm not. And so.
I was being real quiet.
Oh yeah.
And then he grabbed my butt, and I was like, dang it!
Because you got to understand, it's a massive chess game that we have to play, okay? For us, it started about 8 o'clock to see what mood she was in. Is she yawning? What blanket is she under in the thing? What TV show is she watching? No, don't check Facebook. Something might upset you because right now the gravitational forces are working in my favor, okay? And then she gets into bed, and for me, it's the grab the butt cheek. And then I knew if I had a chance, and sometimes there was a deep breath. If she could deep breath, I knew, okay, I got a chance. I still got a chance. And if it was an immediate no, I'm like, okay. So here's my suggestion, and this really was a spark for us. Okay, she started to ask if we wanted to have sex. She goes, I mean, and it was like, huh? I mean, literally, it was like, this is refreshing, and because we want to be wanted. And so I would just tell you, try it. I guarantee you, your spouse is probably not going to say I'm busy or I'm my SI joint or I got to wake up early, anything else. He's going to burn a hole in the carpet, run into the bedroom, okay? She's amazing how quickly I can take my clothes off when she wants to fool around. So, hey, I told you.
We're in church
Microphone,
still.
church, you gave it to me, okay, fine. So, but that's my suggestion. It's not complicated, but I would tell you because what you don't want to have happen, and I'm going to be real honest with you. I have a colleague, and we joke. And I'm very blessed. I have a lot of my business. I have a lot of my colleagues that are really close friends. We are very tight, and I got 2 colleagues that their wives are nymphos. Okay, and and a lot of us will be sitting around going, really, and there's some challenging thoughts that come into your mind. Is that because you're like, man, wow, that must be nice. Yeah, okay. I mean, and so I'm telling you the mind of a guy. All right, just we want to be wanted. It doesn't have to be every night. I mean, but it just to be wanted and to be asked, it would be refreshing. Is the best thing I can tell you.
Okay, we're going to talk about, we got to hurry, grace in your spouse's humanity. So whether you've been married for like a lot of years or just a few, you know that when you live with somebody day in and day out, there's a lot of grace that's required and a lot of wisdom because you know your spouse's faults and their inadequacies better than anybody. And it requires grace and wisdom to know when you just accept what is and when there's some accountability there.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we shouldn't use our spouse's weaknesses as a weapon against them. And that's what I see with our friends. I mean, it's just, and people that we get to be with regularly is they use their spouses, their weaknesses as a weapon. She's awesome. I love her. I mean, I would do anything for her, and it's a privilege to be able to protect her and to love her and provide for her. But she is incredibly forgetful, okay? Like insanely forgetful, okay? So here's an example, because there's a lot of them, is that she will ask me to go to Kroger. Okay, she does usually the big grocery shopping, but like on a Sunday night, we took dinner, so I'll go run to Kroger, after church and battle the massive craziness there and go to grocery. And so she makes the list, and I go. Well, and so because I don't mind. Well, what'll happen is I will literally drive the car. It's a 5-minute drive. Get there, walk the line, check out, get to my car, drive home. Teach, we need green grapes. Now, keep in mind, I'm 30 minutes into this deal, okay? And that's happened, so after the 58th time, okay, I got frustrated. I would get frustrated, be like, come on, Kelly. I mean, and this is so frustrating. Well, now, and I could have used it as a weapon, like, no, I'm not going to get green grapes. She can get them herself. Well, I would turn around and go back and get them because I realized that it's her. She doesn't mean to be forgetful. She's just forgetful, okay? So now what I do, I check my phone before I leave. When I'm literally walking the checkout counter, I check.
He'll call and say, "Are you sure?"
Are you sure? And 3 out of 4 times we need green grapes. Okay, and so that should be on the recurring list on Kroger. But my point is that I know she's forgetful. She knows she's forgetful. Me getting mad about her forgetfulness is not going to improve the situation. It's the grace that you have to have and the love you have to have that just to look past it. I mean, it was comical the other night where I was riding with your mom and dad somewhere, or your mom, and I gave her the keys to the car. I literally gave her the keys to the car. And 2 minutes later, Paige reminded me that I had to get something out of the car. I looked at her, I said, honey, I need the keys to the car. She said, you never gave me the keys to the car.
Like, it wasn't even 5 minutes.
And I said, honey, yes, I did. She goes, you never gave me the keys to your car. I said, check your pocket. Now, I could have gotten mad. I said, honey, check your pocket. And we were laughing about it. And she's like, here. And so my point is that if your spouse has a weakness and you have weaknesses, you got to have some grace with them because it'll be a perpetual argument every single day because they can't change on the spot, but maybe having some awareness, they can at least try to work and you guys can work together to deal with it. A couple tips. I know we're getting ready to close here. A couple tips that I thought I'd throw in. And this is, if I was somebody who told me this in 2000, it would have saved a lot. You can understand, sometimes Kelly we argue. We argue. And sometimes it's fun. Making up's a whole lot of fun. But is that, like,
We get in some knockdown. One time he flipped over a couch.
One time I barrel rolled a couch. I was so mad at what she just said, she barrel rolled a couch. You know what she said after I barrel rolled the couch? You feel better? She goes, I said that just to see what you'd do. Okay.
That was a long time ago. Really long time ago.
We want to be problem solvers. Our DNA, most men, not all men, most men want to be problem solvers. When you come to us with a problem, can you please preface it by saying, I'm venting, or I need you to fix it? Because a lot of arguments we would get into was she would come to me with a problem, and I'm like, well, here's what you got to do. And she would be like, I don't want you to fix this. I'm just venting to you as my husband and my best friend. And so if somebody would have told me that, would have saved us a lot of hardship early on because we want to solve your problems, okay? And if you come to us, just say, hey, I don't want you to do anything with this. I'm just venting. It helps a lot. Number 2. And mom, if you're watching this, Donna Freeman, it's not meant towards you, okay? I'm kidding a little bit with the nagging. But nagging and pestering your spouse doesn't work in the long term. You may get what you want immediately, but you are literally artificially eroding your marriage. I see it with my buddies that their wives nag and nag and nag and nag. They get what they want in the short term, but their marriage suffers because it wears them down. It literally wears them down to the point, all they're doing, they're not operating out of love. They're operating out of appeasement and resentment and to get you to shut up. That's the reality. And funny story, so our nag story, and we squelched it pretty early, thank goodness. This is before we had Maddie, and Kelly would just, so one night, I'm on the couch, and we're watching TV, and she's just, I leaned over, and I grabbed the remote, and I went like this. I just kept watching TV. And I was ignoring her. And she's like, TJ, aren't you listening to me? And I go, what? And she goes, what did you just do? I said, I muted you. And it took me about 5 times to figure that out, that I would literally just mute her. Because it wasn't important. It was just...
Yeah, he's not talking about... It wasn't in a disrespectful way. I was being disrespectful.
It was a joking way. It was like, you are nagging me. Stop nagging me.
You have to find that balance, right? And in my tendency, I still have that tendency, but I kind of check myself and go, okay, is this really important? Have I already reminded him about this? Is he already handling it and just hasn't told me that he's handling it? Because you don't want to be that stereotypical naggy wife. I mean, you really don't. And so you got to find that. You've got to find that balance.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I wasn't trying to mean in all issues. It was just the stuff that doesn't matter. It's the stuff the important stuff, obviously the important stuff. but it's the stuff that doesn't matter. That's just it's the stuff that is so small and so tedious that it's not big. And I've just seen, like I said, I've seen it over and over again. And we have a great marriage, I believe, and by God's grace. But we squelched that early on by figuring out when to push each other and when not to, when to nag them, when not to. Now we can joke about it. Now it's, simple, funny things.
Okay, lastly, make sure you know your spouse's love language. So we all know them, right? Words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch. Make sure you know, and if you didn't get all those, are they in your notes? Are the love languages in your notes? Okay, well, anyway, you can Google them. 5 love languages. Gary Chapman is the author of the book. But make sure you know what your spouse's love language is. Mine is words of affirmation and quality time. TJ's is words of affirmation and physical touch. Most men's, one of their love languages will be physical touch. But make sure that you know what your spouse's love language is and that you try to honor that and incorporate that into your marriage. I am going to leave you with this quote, and I don't even know who it's from, but it says, "A successful marriage requires falling in love many times, always with the same person." And we're very much in love. And we work at staying that way. We work at it. I'll leave him little love notes. I'm not out of town very often. Usually it's him, but I was out of town a few weeks ago and left him a little love note and some other things on his pillow. And, just little things like that. He's the romantic in the relationship. He gets me every Valentine's Day, cards, and he writes in them. And, fairly often, I'll just say, thank you. Thank you for how hard you work, and thank you for how well you provide for us, and thank you for just being such a great dad to our girls. And, those types of little things go a long way. When the garage door opens in the evening, after 24 years, I get butterflies in my stomach still. And when I'm getting ready to go on a date with them, I want to look pretty, and I get butterflies. And, that doesn't just happen. It takes work. Our marriage is not perfect at all. We could have done a whole nother talk on all the other stuff. But we really do work at it. It takes work. And so I would just encourage you to do your part to put that work in, and you and your spouse will reap the benefits, and your kids. Thanks.